Welcome to the Retirement Resource Show, the place to come and live a retirement that is meaningful, fulfilling, and fun. We believe this phase of your life is the best time of your life. It's up to you. And we've got the show to get you there. Here's your host, Beau Henderson.
Welcome to the Retirement Resource. I'm Beau Henderson here with Amy Scruggs. And Amy, let's talk about retirement just a little bit today. What do you think?
I think it would be great. I know that's the whole basis of the show, but we also bring in great guests. But today I think it would be fun to just kind of give our viewers a little something in those golden nuggets that might make a difference as they're doing their planning or maybe just starting retirement.
Well, very good. So I know we had some things coming up, do a little bit of what's going on in the world, in the news of retirement planning. But I'm excited today. I just want to spend a few minutes and really the bulk of today talking about this idea coming off of 4th of July weekend, financial independence, or what does that mean in retirement, or maybe maybe a different take we can take on what that means.
I love it. Well, let's start with just some quick updates.
Well, one of the first things, let's dig into this idea of, we've been talking a lot about the Secure Act 2.0, and we've been teasing a lot of things. And I'll tell you, one of my favorites that comes up is from a strategic planning perspective is the idea of moving the required minimum distribution age back from age 72 now, eventually aging out to where everybody's not having to take those distributions until 75. But there's multiple other updates in that bill that has passed the House Ways and Means Committee. And I just wanted to put that on the radar that over the next few weeks, as we have those details and as they're fleshed out, what I want to do within the news is as we have legislation is, okay, what is 1, 2, 3, 4 things that might be impactful to you or apply to you in your situation. And from there, when it comes time to make our decisions, when it comes time to make those transitions, we're aware and we're ready to make better decisions and we're better to transition better. So that would be one. Yeah. That's
going to be good as we see that unfolding and to continue bringing that information into the show, which I think is really, really helpful. I know there was another update that just came in regarding how we view our statements with 401. Can you share that with us?
Oh, so the 401k statements, one of the things that came up with the last round of legislation was this idea that on our 401k statements, and it shouldn't be too long now, we'll start seeing not just balances in those plans, but illustrations equaling the equivalent of, instead of just a sum, how long would that last? What would that look like if you were to take a distribution from that amount over your life expectancy? So they'll show it two ways. They're gonna be showing it both your life or a joint life. So it could be you and a spouse. And what the idea with that, and I think there's pros and cons to that we're going to see. The idea is to create a reality around, hey, if I need $2,000 a month and I have $50,000 saved, that's not going to last for 30 years, right? It's right. Literally what would sustain for the rest of my life. So sometimes I think that'll help us, and they'll be, okay, if I know exactly where I need to be and how much I need to save per year between now and my retirement goal, that gives me a little more of a tangible idea of what to do and how to attack it. Now, what I am concerned might happen, Amy, too, is this idea of, well, I see it and I'm so far off from where I need to be that I'm ready to throw in the towel and say, why even bother?
Why bother?
Right? So those are the couple things. So I think it's a good move, because anything that creates more clarity and a little more retirement or financial IQ, and it's giving more data and a clearer picture. But I do think there needs to be some follow-ups added to it. Okay, how do I take this data that's coming home in my 401k statement now? How do I interpret that, and how do I turn that into an actionable strategy to do something to move me towards what I'm trying to do? Or what does this data do, or how does it fit into my overall plan? So I think that's the follow-up to that, but I think it is a good step in the right direction, because when people have more clarity in data, we're getting there, right? So I think it's a positive step, but I think there's going to be some follow-up required.
Oh, and I think so many people are going to benefit from this, because there is that we need the knowledge. Not everyone eats, sleeps, and breathes this every day like you do, Beau. As an advisor, there's a lot of people going, I don't even know how to read this. How do I even plan? Am I doing the right thing? And hopefully that can help them self-navigate just a little bit more, and then lead them to a great advisor so they can really know how to plan that correctly.
Yeah, and sometimes the reality does have a positive effect of creating some action. Hey, if I know now, if I don't do this, I'm not going to be there. Otherwise, we can just kind of not think about it, ostrich with a head in the sand technique. And
Crawl
hope
under
it
the
turns out
desk.
okay, right? So sometimes facing reality can help us. And we do, as a country, we undersave for retirement. So maybe I'd like to see this being one step in the right direction to help with that.
I love it. Now, another step that we go in planning our life and our financial a lot of time is going to dad. We're just coming off of Father's Day, which I didn't
Right?
get to see you, so happy belated Father's Day to you.
Appreciate
And
it.
I know you're already so strategically planning for what you need for your retirement as well as what's going to be needed for your beautiful little girl. But dads sometimes give incredible advice to help us make life decisions, and sometimes they don't. Let's
Mhm.
talk about that climate. What should people do when they're discarding or keeping some of the dad advice?
Well, let me share some. I was doing a little Googling around and found some from some people that you may have heard of. And then I'll share some specific things I've had in my life. One, Robert Kiyosaki, right, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Very pivotal book for me. He wrote to know, his dad told him his advice was to know what an asset is and acquire them and become rich. Okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Peter Buffett, Warren Buffett's son, I guess he had some good advice. He said, Dad would say you don't have to swing at every pitch when you're ready to invest. And it looks like a fat, slow moving ball, but that's not true to many things in life. You don't have to swing at every pitch, meaning every exciting thing that comes along, you don't have to worry about, fear of missing out. You take your time, do your analysis. So I like that. Let's see, who else do we have here? Alec Baldwin's advice from his dad was marry a rich woman. There you go. That
There you
might
go.
work. Grace Slick, dad told me if I always pay my bills with 1/3, save 1/3, and screw around with the last third, I'll be okay, no matter how much I earned. It's the only thing he said that I listened to, and I've never been in any financial trouble.
Okay.
Sometimes keeping it simple works, right?
Yes.
Okay, if we're going to get a little philosophical, Bob Dylan said, what's money? A man is a success if he gets up in the morning and goes to bed at night and in between does what he wants to do. There's
All
something
right.
there too, right?
That's part of the fulfilling and fun, right?
There you go. That's right. Never a borrower nor a lender be, for loan off loses both itself and friend. Polonius, Laertes, and Hamlet. So
Mm.
we're getting very deep on some of these now. Let's see. And so those were some when we looked up just some quotes from some people we might. So there's those. But for me, I've heard thousands of stories now over the years of talking with people through these things. And I've seen some common themes, and I've seen some things that are helpful, and I've seen some things that are harmful.
Mhm.
And if I could say one that I see is the most harmful, so let's go negative first. If I could see one that's the most harmful as a dad, and I think this is a thing I've experienced. I believe it's shifting some, but I believe it has a long way to go. I think as men, we're taught that we're supposed to know how to handle money,
Mhm.
and it should be a skill you're kind of ingrained and born with, and you don't really talk about it much, right?
Right.
And so I've seen a lot of dads honestly do a disservice when their model is we don't talk about money,
Right.
because a family that doesn't talk about money, a lot of times their only interaction or energy around that money is when negative things have happened,
Yes.
or it's just not very positive. And then if that person that always handled the money is not around, then there's no foundation of financial literacy or the ability to deal with that money. So I think the number one thing as dads is if we can teach our household, our family, especially our kids, to talk about money and demystify the negative energy or the power that we give money, because money is just a tool. Dead
Right.
presidents on paper, all the energy is given to us from emotional human beings, right? So if we can say this is something we have to live with, we all have to deal with, here's some rules with it, here's how you use it, here's how it can help you, here's some of those rules we talked about earlier. Don't necessarily spend more than you make, do some of those good foundational, we're joking about that Grace Slick, but that idea of spending a third, using a third on whatever you want, and saving
Yes.
a third, something that simple could serve you well for your whole life. So I think that's a big key is
Mhm.
if we want to shift a negative to a positive is we really should talk about money.
Yeah.
And that's with our kids.
Yeah.
If you're a couple, what do we say over the biggest cause of fights in marriages or relationships is money.
Yes.
Antidote to that, talk about money and make it so that it's the normal thing. It's, whether it's quarterly or monthly, we just see where we are. We see what we need to do. We talk about it, and it doesn't become this mystical powerful thing. It's just money that you're dealing with to deal with life.
Right.
So I think that's the one thing we could do better. Some notes I had on what's positive things I've seen as far as, I think that's kind of the flip of the coin, right? We can talk about money. We can look for learning opportunities to teach our kids about money, right? It's kind of like the same thing as that spend a third, all that. I've seen some piggy banks that are a lot of fun when kids are old enough. Maybe even some games, age appropriate games, maybe a younger version of Monopoly. Right, thinking of things like that for Gwendolyn as she gets older.
Yes. Oh, and especially once you hit the high school age, it's really critical that the
Right.
conversation it becomes very open and very frequent at that stage.
Right, and then you can have fun, right? As kids get older, right?
Yeah.
You can start having mock stock accounts or even real stock accounts and let them learn and teach and share and buy and research. So a lot of good things. But I think the key, if there's anything when it comes to money advice, it's make money a positive thing that we talk about in our lives. I think that's the bottom line, because most of the long-term lifetime anxieties, fears, worries, doubts come somewhere from money either not being talked about or only being talked about in negative context. So I think if we could eliminate that, we could change either our scenario for our kids or even sometimes generations of bad relationships with money.
Oh, it's powerful. That right there, that's the mic drop. That's the show
So
right there.
So that might be a whole show is whether it's our kids, whether it's us celebrating financial independence, which I know we're going to talk about some more.
Yes.
Whether it's talking about this applies going into retirement, right?
Yes.
How do you be in the best position possible throughout retirement? As you talk about your money, right? You talk about your retirement, you talk about your plan, and you do it proactively. And what happens is we shift from what's the norm, and the norm is I only deal with it when it happens to me. When we talk about it, right, we're proactively addressing it before the things happen. Then we're in a better position when it does come up.
Well, as we lead into talking about financial independence, I think because you deal with so many retirees and you are in this space, 7 days a week, basically, what do most retirees, what's the most common thing that you feel that they think is a financial independence? What does that look like to most people?
So if we're talking specific, so financial independence, I think there's a couple layers there, right? I think one, financially, is the ability to feel truly at peace that I have enough to be able to retire. I have enough assets, I have enough income to be able to retire, and I won't run out. And the key with that, Amy, is that we can't do what we were talking about earlier. We can't say, well, there's a chunk of money here and I hope it works out and it lasts. So we have to do things with mathematical certainty, and that involves some modeling. And that sounds a little bit mathematical, but it needs to be. Meaning, how do I structure a plan that if I need it to last 25, 30 years plus, that it will not fail, regardless of if the market's up or down? Because one thing we know, the market will be up and down.
Yes.
Right? So modeling with that. So one is the first layer. It's like an onion, right? The first layer of financial independence is that I have enough. That I have enough to live. I'm not going to be a burden on anybody else later in life. Those kind of things. I think the second layer, and this is the deep layer, but I think this is where it's really all, and it's kind of the theme of what we do here. It's the clarity around the independence to do what I want to do, where I want to do it, with who I want to do it with. So it's that rich life stuff, right? I want to travel. I want to stay home and help raise the grandkids. I want to write that book. I want to start that business. That's the why. And I think the independence to be able to exercise that part of you that's fulfilling to you, I think that's true freedom. I think the money's a tool to get there. So I think I think we're stacking it, right? One, yes, we have to have money to keep going through the month and pay the bills and do the things, but then the clarity on what does that life mean? What does that retirement mean that's meaningful, fulfilling? And I like to throw in there fun. Right. And then having such clarity on that you know that you are taking the steps to bring that to be or to fruition. I think that's true freedom.
Well, and I'm going to throw this at you a little bit here, but sometimes that's not just one channel or one road, especially when you've got a couple.
Right.
It may look different to both of them.
Hmm.
The woman might want to say, I want to have the grandkids over every day, and the husband to say, I want to travel constantly. Where do we find that? What does the budget need to look like to fulfill both of theirs and find those happy mediums? Where do you see that sometimes that gets pulled in multiple directions when they're looking at different answers of what financial independence looks like?
Same thing, right? The clarity in the conversations. That's why the sooner we can start having those conversations, financial and non-financial, because you just hit on something huge. It's beautiful to be able to share and do life with a person, but it's also twice as complicated, right? Because if we don't talk about it, the human nature is that, well, Amy, I think you want to do what I want to do because that's the right thing, and you probably thinking, Beau, your plan is my plan. And if we don't talk about it up front, the worst thing to do is to get there and then realize there's expectations that aren't going to be met. So I think that's a lot of the conversation in pre-work, going into retirement, going into a new transition in life, is to make sure, hey, we put all this stuff out on the table, because the reality is, if I want to stay home and raise the grandkids 6 days a week and you want to travel half the year, we're going to have to find that middle ground, or there's going to be a lot of disconnect, and disconnect in the heat of the moment sometimes can cause big problems, right? Sure. They can cause bad problems and can cause ends of relationship type of problems. So, so I think that's the key. It's just like we talk about money, we talk about these transitions, we talk about, and we can dream here, right? What is that exciting? What is it, that next phase of life that's really exciting to you? So we can have some fun and dream. May we have to scale it back? Maybe, right? Maybe, if you're wanting to do something that costs a couple $100,000 a year and that's not the budget, then we might have to find the version of it that we can exercise, right? But the conversations need to be had. So I think that's a great question, because the expectations, I've seen this happen time and time again. I'll give you an example recently, and just you can totally see this happening. I think husband put in his 40 years working, and in his mind, you know what, I'm going to take a year, maybe two, and I'm going to chill out. I paid my dues. I'm going to golf and
barbecue.
I'm going to relax. I'm going to sit back. I don't want to be, and that was his internal idea. And this came up later and his wife's idea is, hey, John, we'll call him John. John's finally going to be home. Now, all these projects we've never been able to get to because we've been working and raising a family, he's finally now available. Right. So she had the to-do list about 10 years stacked. And then he wanted to rest. She's like, okay, now
I'm getting a new sunroom.
That's right. So you can see, and neither one was wrong, right? Neither one was wrong to have their idea or their expectation. But because they didn't really talk about it ahead of time, it came out later after some tough experiences working through it, that, okay, we had the different ideas and we didn't even know it going into that. So.
Well, and I think a big part has to be that adaptability. We talk about financial independence. So let's say we've got a couple did everything right. They know, yes, we've looked at all the charts and spreadsheets. The math works. We've got enough to not be stressed for the rest of our life. Even if we live to 100, we did this right. What are some situations that could come up where they still need to adapt that maybe they're not looking at on the spreadsheet?
Yeah, I think the key would be, it's kind of like planting a tree, right? I believe it's a Chinese proverb. When was the best time to plant it? Something like 100 years ago.
100 years ago.
And if not, right now, right? So I think that's the key. Is one I came up with. I just, how I like to make up acronyms. I came up with something as I was thinking through this conversation, and I called it let's call it CTS. Okay, we're gonna act like that's something, but I just made it up. Okay, CTS. Okay. So how do we address this? C is clarity, right? If we can step back and gain clarity on where am I? Where am I in life? Where am I in my relationships? Where am I with my finances? And then the clarity around where do I want to go? So if we can step back and get some clarity, and sometimes that takes some work because that's hard to do. It's easy not to know exactly where your finances are. It's easy not to know really where you want to go with things if you've just been so busy you haven't had to think about it. So number one, as we transition to how do we shift towards this more independence, is step back and take stock of clarity, especially you find yourself in a place of fear, anxiety, overwhelm, doubt, worry, those negative emotions we've all
Right.
experienced, that's a great time to step back and seek clarity, because that clarity exercise is always an anecdote, because when we're clear, it starts to relieve that fear,
Yes.
anxiety, doubt, and worry. So clarity is one. The other that we're talking about, so we have clarity on where we're starting and where we want to go. And again, I'm talking across the board: health, relationships, finances. So this is kind of a whole life, holistic message. The second piece, we're talking about this idea of focus on true wealth, right? So let's focus on $1 million in the bank might help you pay your bills, but that doesn't make you happy in and of itself.
Right.
True wealth typically goes down to your most important relationships with the people you care about the most, and memorable experiences. We talked about some other things, physical health. Those are the things that truly, if we look at academic studies and we really survey and pay attention, those are what makes people. Now, can our money help us achieve those things? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm not saying be happy and poor. I'm saying let's do both if possible. Right.
Right.
So focus on true wealth. What is true wealth in your life? What is the best version of yourself? Some people go as far as to call it like your soul purpose. What is that thing that you know you're meant here, put here on earth to be, and move towards that? Can we create a life and a path to move towards that? Because I think that's everybody here to an extent. And Amy, I don't want to get too far out there, but we're here to self-actualize something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. To grow into something, to be something. If not, what would be the point? Okay. So focus on true wealth. As we transition, we gain that clarity, and we're moving towards that definition. We call it simply your definition of a rich life. I think that's a great way to put it, because that's the life that's meaningful and fulfilling to you. Not my definition, not Amy's, it's yours, right?
Right.
And then the third, so I think if we focus on we focus on clarity, we focus on true wealth, and then the third is just to live with a proactive mindset or stay proactive, meaning we have money conversations, we have clarity conversations, and we do them as regular exercise and routine to check on that. Are we moving down the path we want to move down? Are we going where we want to go? And are we making the tiny little adjustments that we need to make along the way to be in the best position to get there? One of the things you'll like this, so years ago on the Rich Life show, it was a radio show we did somewhere around 2010. A listener called into the show, and he did sailboats. He sailed, and he shared with us the difference between, and I put it in the 10 Investments book. I love this story so much. He shared with us the difference between a motorboat and a sailboat, that a sailboat tacks thousands and thousands of little course corrections to get to where it's going.
Wow.
Whereas a boat with a motor just goes from point A to point B, right?
Wow.
And the idea of life, really, life is a series of tacking. We're getting some information, we're heading in a direction, and then we're slightly adjusting. And you're slightly adjusting. The wind might be up today, and we have to adjust a little over there. So the art of tacking, right? And learning to live life in the art of tacking, I think, is kind of a powerful analogy there.
It is powerful. Yeah, it allows us to not ignore those warning signs. The wind stops, something changes, you've got to pay attention.
Right. So I think that would be, if we had three things, and I don't even know if this, we might have kind of went down a path, but it's what I felt as we started talking is, if there's three takeaways from today that can help us truly be independent financially and beyond, I think it's clarity, true wealth, and be proactive. Focus on clarity. How about this? Gain clarity, focus on true wealth, and be proactive.
Well, and I loved a common theme you had in there that still fits into the C, is there was a lot of communication. That was a big part of achieving those things.
That's right. Yeah. I think communication could be you could slide that C right in there too. Communication.
Having those conversations.
The things, if we want to be comfortable with things in our life, we need to be able to talk about it. So I think
and I think a misconception is, well, if I have millions of dollars in the bank, then that's it, I'm happy. And what you've done here is address the entire retirement, the entire person, the entire real fulfilling life that goes along with that. And the money can fund that, but you still need both, or you're not going to be happy. And at the end of the day, we want both, don't we?
We do. And I think the way to do it is the hard part is it's not one's right or wrong, bad or good. It's just different layers, right? First layer, we do have to know our mathematical income and expenses, assets, liabilities. We have to know those points, or it doesn't work. It has to add up. So that's phase one. But then we got to make sure those things are used as a tool to live the life that we're here to live or want to live, right? Or the things we want to do for the people we care about or things we care about the most. So yeah, I think it's got to be done in layers, but I think that to me would be what I would consider independence. And we're very blessed and fortunate that we still live, as crazy as it is, we still live in a world to where we can do these things. And we have control, and with what we do, our responses to what we do to create the life we want. And I think that's independence. That's freedom.
It was really a treat for me today to get this time with you. We didn't have a guest that was with us today. We have a lot of incredible guests coming up, but this was a really neat time for us to just really hone in and talk about what that financial independence looks like and some hot topics. What are some of the things that our viewers can be looking forward to in the next couple of weeks and 2 months as we've kind of planned some of that out? We've got some fun things coming.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me what's on the queue, because I know you've been working behind the scenes on helping. Some of the fun things is, and you guys, as you're watching, you might have some ideas. We're working on getting some health professionals in here, as far as like living healthy in retirement. Female, I would love both somebody focused on serving the female in our demographic and the males, right? Living healthy in retirement. That's kind of a theme. We talk a lot about relationships or dating in retirement. So we're going to have some people that are either experts, matchmakers, something, so that we're expanding the conversation beyond, I'm always here and I can tell you about all the Social Security rules. I can tell you about what we can do with a Roth IRA.
And we're going to do that too.
And we will do that. But I know that the conversation is so much bigger than that. And I want it to be about that fulfilling, what do we call it? Fulfilling next phase, that fulfilling, exciting transition to the best part of our life as we transition from working life to retirement. So lots of fun stuff. Anything else jump out at you? I know we got a lot of legislation that we'll have.
Legislation items. We're going to, discuss some recreational items, but also a hot topic as we talk about a fulfilling retirement is also discussing our veterans and what they've gone through and where they're at in retirement as they address having a fulfilling life and overcoming some of those PTSD issues that could still be there. So we're going to discuss that, especially as it comes up into Veterans Day. And we've got some great guests and resources for that as well. So I think we're going to hit a lot of topics.
Very good. So I'm excited. So a lot to come up. And today, sometimes it's just fun when we turn on the cameras and roll, because I really like that little 3 to 4 point conversation we had today. It's not really anything new. It just comes together sometimes in different ways, and we talk through it. So thank you all for being here. One of the things I would love, Amy, let me see which camera we're looking at here. One of the things I love is this idea. We talked a lot about that, a rich life, that fulfilling, meaningful life to you. Something that we always love, and it's always a blessing when we share it, is what is that for you? Right? If you're watching this, or you're watching a recording of this, or some audio version of this conversation, what is your definition of a rich life? We love to hear it, because there's some power in speaking to it, right? There's some power that makes it real when you speak it. But also what I find is your definition of a rich life might motivate or inspire somebody else to step up to theirs. And it can be a blessing when we share them together. And it can be fun too, to say, wow, if Amy thinks that's possible, maybe my thing's possible too. So let us know. Always love to hear what your definition of a rich life is. And you know what, Amy, I think that was a pretty good show.
I think this was really fun. I love sharing this platform with you, Beau. Thank you.
All right. Well, for those of you watching, we'll have more coming up next week. Got a lot, I believe. We're just gonna roll up. You'll see us teasing the different guests and the different topics as we roll them out and prep them for the week. But let us know other topics you want to hear about. What are the things you care about? What would alleviate some of that fear, anxiety, doubt, tension, worry as you're thinking about transitioning into retirement? Right? Let us know those topics, because again, clarity and information usually help alleviate that. And we're here for you. This is your show. I always have ideas and things to talk about, but this is really the reason we do this, is to be a resource for those of you that we call rich lifers, committed to doing the best you can to transition to live your definition of a rich life in retirement. And we'll be here for you next week, same time, same place, right here on the Retirement Resource. See you next time.